Let's go back and talk about Joseph just a little bit here. First of all, he is the firstborn of the woman that his father Jacob truly loves. He's not the firstborn, Reuben was, but he's the firstborn of Rachel. And so that becomes a very significant point. He is born of a woman whose womb had to be opened miraculously. That's another significant point. And because his father loves him so much, and because Reuben, the firstborn, according to Scripture, defiled his father's bed, Joseph is the one who is given the birthright and giving the blessing. And to acknowledge this, what does his father do? Well, he gives him a special coat. It's according to the Hebrew text, it's more like a priestly tunic of some type. But most people read in their Bibles, in Jewish or Christian, they'll read in the Scriptures where it is a multicolored coat. Now, again, in the Hebrew, it doesn't really say that. Actually, that comes to us through the Septuagint, but because it's accepted as being the reality both by Jewish theologians and Christians, that's what we're going to go with. He's given a multicolored coat. But what does this coat do? It sets him apart from the rest of his brethren. It shows and acknowledges that his father has invested in him authority, has invested trust in him. And it's understood that when Jacob dies, Joseph is going to be the patriarch of the family. He has the blessing. He has the birthright. He has the multicolored coat. Now, the Bible tells us that Joseph was a very wise young man. Commentaries say that he was so wise that sometimes he would be tempted to let it go to his head. He liked to strut around in his multicolored coat. Again, this is all according to commentary, so take it for what it's worth. But it will say that the passages of Scripture do bring out that when Joseph's brothers weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing, Joseph didn't hesitate to go and tell his father about it. And, of course, you can imagine how this would ingratiate him to his brothers, who were already a bit taken aback by the fact that he's been given this special coat and these special privileges. Not only that, but Joseph is a dreamer. But not just any dreamer. These dreams obviously come to him from God. And in the first dream that we're told about, he sees 11 sheaves bowing to his sheaf. And he awakes in the morning, he's really excited about what he's been shown by God, that he's been given authority and that these others are going to bow to him. And so, expecting that everybody else is going to be excited about it, he goes out and shares it with his brethren. And they get excited about it, all right, but probably not in the way he expected. They begin to despise him for it. They begin to hate him even more. Well, he has another dream. And in that dream, he sees the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing to his star. And again, he gets excited about this, and he goes out and he shares it with his father, and he shares it with his brothers. He gets the same reaction from his brothers. But also, his father replies in words to this effect, "What are you talking about? Shall I and your mother and your brothers bow down unto you?" Now, what I find odd about this particular statement is that Jacob mentions his mother, which is Rachel, and at this time, Rachel is dead. So my question is, why would Jacob say, "Shall I and your mother, who's dead, and your brothers bow down to you?" My opinion as to why Jacob makes this statement is this. I believe that the dreams that God gave to Joseph are not just for Joseph exclusively. In other words, these are dreams that their fruition speaks, yes, of the guy Joseph we read about in the Scripture, but it also alludes to something else that would happen after Joseph. In other words, Joseph really is a picture of someone else. And of course, most people, very quickly see the Messiah in the story of Joseph. He's born of a womb that has to be opened miraculously. He has the favor of his father. He has the birthright and the blessing, if you will. He's despised by his brethren. He's placed in a pit. He has to be placed in prison, or he is placed in prison, falsely accused, only to be elevated to power, and only to be in position to be the one who his brothers come to him, not knowing that it's him, and that in a place and time of his choosing, he reveals to them who he is. The end result being that all Israel is saved. And so we see that the Messiah is pictured, I should say, in Joseph. Joseph is a picture of the Messiah. Joseph points us to the Messiah. This is one of those stories, no doubt, that the Messiah, when he was talking to his disciples on the road to Emmaus, probably went to and discussed, so that they would know through the writings of Moses how these things were supposed to happen to the Messiah. But at any rate, Joseph points us to the Messiah. But let me go one further. If it applies to the Messiah, then I'm going to suggest to you that it also applies to the Messiah's body. According to Galatians 3, verse 16, He, the Messiah that is the seed of Abraham. But in that same chapter, in verse 29, we're told that if you are in Messiah, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So my point is that if it applies to the Messiah, He's the seed of Abraham, then I'm also the seed of Abraham. We understand that He is the seed of the woman in Genesis 3:15. But we're also told in Revelation chapter 12, verse 17, that she has a remnant of her seed who keep the commandments of God and has the testimony of the Messiah. In other words, if He's the seed of the woman, then His body, consequently, is the seed of the woman as well. So my point is this. If Joseph is ultimately going to point us to the Messiah, and he's the head of the body, then I suggest to you that Joseph is also going to point us to the Messiah's body. His story is going to teach us not only of the Messiah specifically, but His body at large. Things that the Messiah went through, His body, to some degree, is going to have to go through as well. And that's what the story of Joseph, I believe, is telling us. And I believe that is why Jacob said, because Jacob was a prophet, Jacob said, "Shall I and your mother and your brothers bow down unto you into the earth?" It is a prophetic statement.